Hare Krishna, welcome everybody to Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Today we are very fortunate to have His Grace Balram Shakti Prabhuji to enlighten us on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 14th chapter, 19th verse. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for your valuable time and association this morning. Before I hand over the call to you, I would like to hand over it to Tiffany Mataji for your brief introduction. Tiffany Mataji, please take over.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. His Grace Balaram Shakti Prabhu is a full-time monk at Govardhan Eco Village. He completed his BE in metallurgical engineering from NIT Tiruchirappalli, in 2002. Thereafter, he joined Pennsylvania State University and graduated with a PhD in material science in 2007. While at Pennsylvania State University, he took up to Krishna consciousness as a member of the Vedic Society. He was mentored by His Grace Yugal Kishore Prabhuji. After he moved back to India, he chose to become a full-time monk at Radha Gopinath Mandir. Among others, he was mentored by His Grace Gauranga Prabhuji. In May 2010, he moved to Govardhan Eco Village and has been serving there full time. He is an extremely erudite scholar in Vaishnava scriptures and is one of the teachers at the Bhaktivedanta Vidyapit. He is a disciple of His Holiness Maharaj Swami. Radha Swami Maharaj, forgive me. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for your valuable time and association. Please take over, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Madhuri. Thank you all very much for having me here. And I feel very fortunate to have received this opportunity to share Srimad Bhagavatam with all of you. So today we are going to discuss from the 5th canto, 14th chapter, 19th verse. Namom Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So we have been discussing from this chapter which talks about the problem with material attachments in this material world, and we will read the verse and the translation and see what Srila Prabhupada has mentioned in the purport and see what we can discuss from today's verse. Actually, I didn't realize that the daylight savings had started, so I may have to rush little early today because I thought it was starting at 4:45 or 4:50 Indian Standard Time, but later I realized that it was starting at 5:50. So I'll see whatever we can complete, we will complete, and then maybe next time I'll be a little bit more careful and aware. Okay, so
Hare Krishna
yes,
Prabhuji.
yeah,
We
yes,
cannot see you. Is that your internet or you forgot to on the video? I just want to know. Thank you, Prabhuji.
yeah, if the internet becomes slow, then I may have to switch off my video. Yeah. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, sorry about the timing. I remind each and every speaker, but I did not remind you because you are already scheduled. So, and you are on the group also, so you might be knowing. That's why.
Yeah, but yeah, my mistake, Mother. I didn't really notice. I was not aware that the daylight savings was coming. So
We change the time everywhere, so.
yeah. Thank you, Mother. Okay, so we will start and okay, just hold on. Okay, we'll read the verse. It's again a prose verse, so I will just read it. Kvachiccha dussahena kaya abhyantara vahnina grihita saraha swakutumbaya krudyati. Sometimes, due to bodily hunger and thirst, the conditioned soul becomes so disturbed that he loses his patience and becomes angry with his own beloved sons, daughters, and wife. Thus, being unkind to them, he suffers all the more. Okay. Purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, Srila Vidyapati Thakur has sung Tatala Shaikata Vari Bindu Sama Sutamita Ramani Samaje. The happiness of family life is compared to a drop of water in the desert. No one can be happy in family life. According to the Vedic civilization, one cannot give up the responsibilities of family life, but today everyone is giving up family life by divorce. This is due to the miserable condition experienced in the family. Sometimes, due to misery, one becomes very hardened towards his affectionate sons, daughters, and wife. This is but a part of the blazing fire of the forest of material life. Okay, so anyway, I mean, this is in one sense painting a very I mean, in one sense, seems like a very pessimistic picture about family life. But in one sense, this is the picture of material life, life in the material world, when not dedicated to worshipping Krishna, whether one is in family life or in any life for that matter. Um, uh, so that's the point. But because most people tend to get into family life, it seems like an indication of family life. But it's not that if someone does not get married, um, it's going to be really wonderful, even though he may be dedicated to enjoying his material desires. So that's not what exactly it is indicating here. Because if you see, somewhere I was reading, world statistics says that mm, that unmarried males constitute maybe some 4 or 5% of world population. Unmarried adult males of marriageable age, they probably constitute, I don't know what percentage, but it's a small percentage. And it is mentioned that they contribute to probably close to 50% of the world crimes, in one sense, if you see. So, so it's not that if one chooses not to get into family life while harboring material desires, that material world is going to be a bed of roses for such a person. Because if he's going to commit all those kinds of crimes, he's going to be punished for it, and his life is going to be really miserable actually. Either in the prison house or in the prison house of Yamaraj. So the point is, this is indicating a life dedicated to material enjoyment. I'm sorry, just there is some power cut here. Hopefully it will come in a few minutes, so you're probably not seeing me properly, but that's fine. So that's the point. So whenever Bhagavatam or any other scriptures seemingly, sort of presenting a very critical note about family life, it is about a life dedicated to material enjoyment and not dedicated to worshipping Krishna. So this can happen either in family life or in unmarried life, everything. So that is the point. So anyway, so today we will discuss on this theme of, I'm sorry, today was a packed day for me, and honestly, you know this is what I call as a, you know Belpuri class, pick up something from here, something from there, and put it together and just mix it and present. So I don't feel very good, but I thought somehow I connected to the topic on hand. Today was a packed day, so I could not really do proper justice. So I hope you will forgive me for that. But anyway, so today we will discuss on this. In fact, this whole chapter or the last two chapters is about this theme of material attachment rather than householder life. Um, mm, so we will discuss this theme of how is it relevant to devotees. Uh, so how material attachments, how do they affect a devotee's steadiness in devotional service? So this is something that we will try to discuss today. If you see, as Rupa Goswami says, the stages of devotional service, first is Adav Shraddha. It first starts with faith on the path of devotional service, faith in the scriptures, faith in the teachings of the scriptures, faith on the path of bhakti, faith in the books that describe about pure devotional service. So this, it starts with that Adav Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha. Then when one gets this faith, one naturally feels that I need to associate with other devotees. Then comes Ata Bhajana Kriya. So Bhajana Kriya means one starts performing activities of devotional service. So now when it comes to this Bhajana Kriya, there can be this Bhajana Kriya or devotional activities performed in a very steady way or in a very unsteady way. So to start with, it starts with unsteady devotional service only. And if you see, what is the reason for unsteady devotional service? It is one's material attachments only. So to various degrees that one has material attachments, to that degree, one's practice of devotional service becomes unsteady, right? So that is what we are going to see. And even in this, there are gradations. So now I am going to discuss from this book Madhurya Kadambini by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where he discusses 6 stages of unsteady devotional service. So someone may say, okay, there is Bhajana Kriya and there is Nishta. So now someone may say that what is this Bhajana Kriya and Nishta? Even within Bhajana Kriya, there are, even within unsteady devotional service, there are various levels which are progressing but overlapping also. They do overlap significantly, but at the same time, there is definitely a sense of progression in it. So we will see what it is. Okay. So, so that's what we will discuss now: material attachments and unsteady devotional service. So in Bhakti Rasa, in Madhurya Kadambini, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes the 6 stages of unsteady devotional service, in generally in sequential order. So he says, first is what is called as, just hold on for 1 second. First is what is called as Utsahamayi. Utsaha means confidence. Utsahamayi means filled with confidence. But here the confidence is actually false confidence. We will see what it is. Then comes Ghana Tharala. Ghana means thick and Tarala means thin. So thick and thin devotional service, which is sporadic endeavor. Sometimes there is very strong endeavor and sometimes there is no endeavor. Then comes Vyuda Vikalpa, indecision. Then the 4th type is called as Vishaya Sangara, which is struggle with the senses. Okay. Then comes Niyama Kshama, inability to uphold vows. And then there is Taranga Rangini, enjoying the facilities offered by Bhakti. So now you may ask, what is this connection between this chapter of Forest of Material Enjoyment and this discussion about Anishtita Bhajana Kriya or unsteady devotional service? What is the connection? See, this whole chapter paints a very bleak picture about material, a materialistic life, a life dedicated to materialistic enjoyment. Okay. And in contrast to that, so on one end of the spectrum, is a materialist. So which is what this chapter is describing. On the other end of the spectrum is a pure devotee who has no material desires. And in between is the sadhaka who has pure devotional faith but materialistic impressions. So now, to speak about the futility of living a life dedicated to pure materialistic endeavors, we all know. At the same time, we know that we are not pure perfected devotees. We are not perfected devotees. Okay. So we do have pure devotional faith, meaning we want to live our life dedicated to the pure ideals as described in the pure devotional scriptures. But at the same time, we are tormented by our past, which includes lot of materialistic impressions. So therefore, our impressions, which are materialistic, which is about which this chapter is talking about, how does it act as an obstacle for us to progress on the path of devotional service? This is a very interesting description that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti is describing here in Madhurya Kadambini. So many of you would have heard from this book, but for those who have never heard from this book, this description is going to be very startling to many, because you might be wondering, how does Vishwanath Chakravarti know about what I am going through? Many of you might feel like that. So it's going to be a very interesting description. So let's see what it is. To start with, when one starts practicing devotional service, he enters the stage of Utsahamayi, which is a Brahmana child. So he gives an example. This is an example. This is not the exact description. A Brahmana child, having just begun the study of the scriptures, thinks he has immediately become a learned scholar worthy of everyone's praise. Similarly, a person just beginning devotional service may develop the audacity to think that he has mastered everything. He is called Utsahamayi, or puffed up with enthusiasm. So this enthusiasm is false enthusiasm. Like if you remember, or I mean, I don't know, I'm not telling that you would have the exact same experience in your life, but just that, you think that the first time someone meets a devotee and gets so inspired, and then next day the Mangalarti starts at 4:30 in the temple, but you see that the person is coming and standing at the gate at 3 o'clock only in the morning. And then he is very intensely chanting, and the first day or the second day, or maybe in the first week only, one particular day he ends up chanting 32 rounds or 64 rounds, morning to evening. And you see, the person will be going around asking people, Prabhu, how many years you have been chanting? How many years you have been practicing Krishna consciousness? He says 10 years. And how many rounds you chant? He says, what is the question? Of course, 16 rounds. And then the person thinks, just 16 rounds after 10 years? Wow. After 1 week, I'm chanting 64 rounds. And this person is chanting just 16 rounds. So, and then you go home and, your parents are watching television and you're like just blasting them. You people, you're just wasting your life, watching this TV, and not realizing that few days back I was also sitting with them and enjoying the same show, right? And you think that, come on, because of this, my progress in devotional service is going to be very much affected, and you people are going to land up in hell and things like that. You create so much ruckus, and you know, and all that, you know, it happens at home. And this is all like puffed up with false confidence, thinking that, you know, in, you know, 1 week 64 rounds, which means probably in a few months I'll be chanting just like Srila Haridas Thakur 192 rounds. 64, just it just, Prabhu, it was just flowing, you know. I didn't even realize 64 like that. But this is utsaha. This is not utsaha, but this is utsahamai, which means filled up with false confidence, because this confidence is very, mm, very misleading sense of confidence. This is not really true. This is just like, you know, the enthusiasm of getting a new thing. You know, new things are always very, very attractive. Then after a couple of days, actually reality dawns. Okay, so this is the stage of Ghanatarala. Reality dawns. Ghana means thick, and Tarala means thin. Okay, or very condensed and very loose. So this is, after few days, he thinks, oh, you know what, Prabhuji, I am expected, I am not even initiated, which means I am not, I have not committed for 16 rounds, but still I have chanted 64 rounds, which means for 4 days I have chanted, right? So, which means even if I don't chant for the next 3 days, it should be fine, right? So he realizes that the next day, he does not even want to pick up the bead bag, right? So that's what he says. The same child sometimes becomes diligently engaged in his studies, and yet at other times, because of inability to understand the scriptures and lack of real taste, he becomes negligent. So the first day when he thought that he had so much taste that he could chant 64 rounds, was not real taste. That was not taste for chanting. That is probably just some rajogun, just some mode of passion, or just the excitement of doing something new. So he says, in the same way, a new devotee will sometimes practice the different activities of devotional service and sometimes neglect them. Being sometimes assiduous and at other times negligent, his endeavor is called ghana tarala, condensed, dilute, thick, thin, like that. But one should not think that this second stage is a stage of regression. He has not regressed in his devotional service. From 64, he has come to 0. Is it regression? The answer is no. Why no? Because he has now come in touch with reality. He has now come in touch with reality. He has understood that my calculation, that today 64, next week 128, the third day 192. So from the third day only I will be chanting like Srila Haridas Thakur. You know, we think like that. This is false confidence. This is not true confidence, right? I remember when I was in Sainik school, you know, our military school. So we used to have every Saturday, every day morning we used to have our physical training, and then every Saturday we used to have our cross country running, and sometimes we used to have cross country race also. So actually every Saturday was like a race in one sense, you can say. So Generally, students enroll in the 6th grade and then it's there till the 12th grade. And if you see on Saturdays, on the beginning Saturdays, the 6th grade children, as soon as the gun is shot, indicating that the race has started, you will see that the 6th grade students are running, they are sprinting ahead, and it's like a 15-kilometer race. The 6th grade students are running really fast, and the rest of the school, they are like very steady and slow. And these people are thinking, wow, um, already with 100 meters, I have a 50-meter gain over the rest of the field, which means when I complete 15 kilometers, these people would have completed only 7 or 8 kilometers. Like that, he's like sprinting and sprinting and sprinting. And after half a kilometer, their race is already over actually. Because they thought that, I can sprint my way in a marathon race. But marathon race is not run and won like that actually. And they are puffing and panting, and then the whole group behind is coming very steady, and then they are at a steady pace, and they pass through these people, and they are puffing and panting and puffing and panting, not realizing that what happened. So the point is that their initial understanding was it was not real. So now that they have stopped, now that their race has stopped, is it that they have regressed? No, they have learned valuable lessons. They have learned what is true enthusiasm and what is false enthusiasm. So that way, the stage of Ghanatarala, even though there is an acute drop of enthusiasm, they realize that this is my state actually. This is my state. What I imagined that this could go on like this forever was a false, you can say, understanding, false conviction. He realizes that. So this is Ghanatarala, when reality actually dawns. So this is actually a progression in one sense. Then he comes to the third um, third stage, where he is viewed a vikalpa means excessive deliberation or excessive speculation. Okay, so this is called as viewed a vikalpa. So he is thinking that right now he's telling, in the previous stage he realizes that his practice of devotional service was like a sine wave with crest and trough and crest and trough like that. So now at this stage of Vyuda Vikalpa, he realizes that I cannot afford to have such an unsteady practice of devotional service. He realizes, right? I cannot afford to practice devotional service in this kind of unsteady way. It has to be steady, right? So he realizes, then he starts analyzing what could be the reason that my practice of devotional service is unsteady. So he starts actually, in one sense, deliberating. What could be the cause? What could be the cause? What could be the cause? And then he starts searching for reasons. So let's see, this is a very, very funny description, but this is, in one sense, we may be able to relate with this. So he is thinking that shall I just spend my life happily in family life, making my wife and children Krishna conscious and worshipping the Lord? Should I do that? Or Should I give them all up and go to Vrindavan and perfect myself by engaging full time in hearing and chanting with no distractions? Look, two options. Either I will first enjoy, live with my wife, and or I will go to Vrindavan. So he's thinking. Sometimes he's thinking like this. Sometimes he's thinking like that. Shall I wait until the last stage after enjoying all sorts of pleasures, when I have finally understood that the whole material world is simply a forest fire of affliction? Then he thinks, look, why should I have theoretical conviction? Theoretical conviction is always weak. I should have practical conviction. So practical conviction comes with experience only. So without experience, how will I understand that, you know, material life is a life dedicated to material enjoyment is actually um, fruitless. How will I understand? Huh? So therefore, I think I should enjoy. He thinks like that. Or he thinks, or maybe I should renounce it right now. Hmm? Then for all of this, by now, he has started studying Shastras also. Okay. By now he has started studying Shastras. So he gets a proof for every single thought that he gets, just like for anything that you want to prove, you can always search for a Prabhupada said quote, from folio. So like that, he also, for every single thing that he finds a quote. So he says, Yopayati Shanair Maya Yoshit Deva Vinirmita Tam Iksheta Atmano Mrityum Trinair Kopam Ivavritam. This is Kapila Dev talking about the dangers of opposite sex. He says, Maya Yoshid, Maya in the form of woman, Deva Vinirmita, who is created by the Lord, Upayati Shanaihi, she approaches the man very gently. Tam Iksheta Atmano Mrityum, one should see her as death. Trinair Avritam Kupamiva, just like a well covered with grass. So he thinks, yeah, you know what? I should be very careful. So I should leave all women, including my wife, and actually go to Vrindavan. Like that, he thinks. And you see what Bharat Maharaj did? Yo dustyajan dara sutan suhrid rajyam hridis sprushah jahau yuvaiva malavad uttama shloka lalasa. So, yaha Bharat Maharaj uttama shloka lalasa. This he will not read, that he had great longing to serve the Lord. So his renunciation is a byproduct of his natural intense longing to serve the Lord. That he will not see. But you see the external things. What did Bharat Maharaj do? Jahau, he gave up. Whom did he give up? Dara, his wife, Sutan, his children, Suhrid, his relatives, Rajyam, his kingdom. He gave up all of that. How? Malavad, just like stool. So now I will also give it up like stool. But it is not like that, but for that he had Uttama Shloka Lalasa, right? The ability to tolerate the material urges. It is proportional to one's devotional strength. Okay. So Bharat Maharaj had tremendous devotional strength due to the great longing to serve the Lord. Therefore, he could tolerate material urges. Jahau, Dara Sutan, Malavad, just like one would give up stool. Why stool? The Acharyas say, because the why such a very graphic analogy is used. So the Acharyas say, oh, this is the best analogy that could express Bharat Maharaj's feeling. How? He says, look, stool is such a thing that if you don't give it up, it causes great pain. After you give it up, you feel great relief and happiness. And having given up, no one looks back to see, how it looks like or what is the texture, whatever. No one looks back because it's it's not worthy, right? And it's disgusting. So this was like Bharat Maharaj's renunciation. Uh, Having given up, he was very happy. And before giving up, he was very eager to give up and he was very anxious to give up, just like one would be very anxious to give up stool. And having given up, he never looked back. But we cannot give up like that, right? So he says that he gave up. Prahlad Maharaj gave up. Yuvaiva, while he was just young. So if Prahlad Maharaj could give up, isn't he teaching me that I should also give it up? So see, one may know scriptures, but one may not have a very mature understanding of tying up the scriptures in a way that it makes very logical sense. Many times people say, Prabhu, you know what? Actually, I have very I don't like very systematic study. What I like is I, I find out some nectarian verses and I relish them. That is very good. But unless you understand what is the context of that nectarian verse, how it is connected, then we may understand it out of context also, right? So this person, he will get a quote for everything. But the thing is, but one may miss the essential details. Like in this case, he will not understand that Bharat Maharaj had Uttama Shloka Lalasa. He had great longing to serve the Lord. But he will just see that, oh, you know what? He gave up his wife, children, as if one would give up stool. And this person is thinking like this because he does not want to take responsibility. You may think like that, right? So therefore he is thinking, so should I thus give up unreliable family life while still young? And then he's thinking, but some Shastric quotes also say that it is not proper to renounce immediately. Yeah, Shastras also seem to talk like that. So maybe, you know what, I should wait until the death of my old parents before renouncing. Before that, I cannot renounce, right? So like that he says. So he says, and for that also he gets a quote. Ahome pitarau vriddau bharya balatmajatmaja anatama mrite dinaha katam jivanti dukkita. Oh, my poor elderly parents and my wife with a mere infant in her arms and my other young children. Without me, they have absolutely no one to protect them and they will suffer unbearably. How can my poor relatives possibly live without me? On things like that, right? So and further, criticizing such a mentality, it is further said, evam grihashaya kshipta hridayo mudadirayam atriptastan anudhyayan mritondam vishate tamah. Thus, because of his foolish mentality, a householder whose heart is overwhelmed by family attachment is never satisfied, constantly meditating on his relatives, and he dies and enters into the darkness of ignorance. So if one is neglecting their spiritual practice just so that one can continuously be engaged in material responsibilities, then such a life is a very unfortunate life, right? So he hears like this also, and at the same time he is hearing other statements which indicate that one should not prematurely renounce and things like that also. So by such statements, the Lord depreciates such renunciation. Therefore, for the time being, I will just work to keep my body alive. Later, after satisfying all my desires, I will enter Vrindavan and engage in worship of the Lord 24 hours a day. Now I will enjoy when I become old and I have tried out all kinds of enjoyment and realized that, it is worthless, then I will enter Vrindavan and worship the Lord 24 hours a day. Like that he thinks. Okay. Um, and then, but uh, you see, I'm telling what I want you to observe here is for every single um, um, for every single thought process, you will find a verse supporting it. For every single contradictory thought process, you will seemingly find a verse which is uh, seeming to uh, encourage that thought process. But the point is, this is how you can take things out of context. So now, initially, when he thought about uh, uh, about living with his parents or living with his family and taking care of them, uh, he found some statements criticizing that. When he was interested in renouncing, he found some statements which criticized a person who wants to just spend all the time living with his family. And now, when he is thinking, no, actually, you know what, I should probably stay with my family, and in the later stage, I will renounce. And interestingly, he finds a verse which is glorifying that also. 11th canto verse, it says, Tasmad madbhakti yuktasya yogino vai madatmanah na jnanam nacha vairagyam praya shreyo bhavediha. So he says, therefore, mad bhakti yuktasya yoginah, for a person engaged in bhakti yoga, madatmanah, with his mind fixed on me, jnanam cha vairagyam, the cultivation of knowledge or renunciation, na prayah shreyo bhavet, is generally not the means of achieving the highest perfection iha, in this world. Look, Bhagavatam clearly says, right, that renunciation is not the means of attaining success on the path of devotional service. So why should I renounce? I will stay at home and continue. So, but what this verse actually is talking about is, this verse is talking not about staying at home or going to forest. This verse is actually talking about one should not try to practice one's spiritual life or bhakti by taking guidance uh, from the Jnana Shastras or Yoga Shastras, like that. One should take guidance from Bhakti Shastras only and practice the limbs of Bhakti Yoga only. That is what this verse talks about. But he takes this verse to mean, Jnana or Vairagya is not the means, which means clearly it says that I can stay at home and spend all the time with my family, and still it should not affect my bhakti. He thinks like that. But this is like, in one sense, like taking things out of context, not understanding the context of a particular verse, right? So he thinks, look, according to this text, renunciation is a fault for the culture of bhakti. He thinks that okay, if I renounce, my bhakti will die, so I should just stay at home. If it arises from bhakti itself, however, that renunciation is not a fault, but an effect of bhakti and subordinate to it. So he thinks that, look, if that renunciation is a byproduct of bhakti, then it is very good. But if that renunciation is practiced as a sadhana, then it cannot lead to bhakti, like that he thinks, right? And then he thinks, so, but but there are some verses which seem to glorify the path of renunciation now, right? So there is this verse, very funny verse from the Shastras, which he has found out successfully, and that book says, yad ashramam agat sa bhikshukas tad anna paripurnamaikshat. He thinks, in whatever ashram the sannyasi stayed, they always gave him more than enough to eat. He says, wow, this looks really amazing. So he says that in the life of renunciation, there is no worry for maintenance. So maybe I should just renounce, he thinks. Wow, if I just become sannyasi, I think wherever I go, they will give food. Why am I just breaking my head and working day and night, working so hard? I will just become a sannyasi, Baba, and wherever I go, they will give me a lot of food, like that. And when he is thinking like that, his family attachment is pulling him. Dekho, are you going to leave your wife? Are you going to leave your child? Just look at her face. She's so young. She's so vulnerable. And look at your old mother. And don't you see, all of them are not averse to practice devotional service. They're willing to practice devotional service. Are you going to leave them? What do Shastras say? So when that attachment comes, he finds a verse which is supporting that attachment. Tavad ragadayastena tavat karagraham graham tavan mohongri nigado yavat krishna natejana. So he is indicating here that so this is Brahmaji speaking this verse in the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So 14th chapter of 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, after Brahma Vimohan Lila, he says, Tavad ragadayas tenaha. So he says, raga adaya, material attachments and desires, okay, they will remain thieves, stenaha, okay, and tavat karagraham graham, and prison houses will remain, and one's house will become a prison house binding one to this material world, and tavan mohongri nigado, and one's affectionate feelings for one's family members will act as foot shackles. Yavat krishna natejanaha, as long as one himself does not become a devotee and one's family members do not become devotees. He says, look, why should I renounce? See, my family members are relatives, right? So if my family members are relatives, my affection for them is not going to bind me to this material world. This house of mine is not going to bind me to this material world, right? And so why should I renounce? Like that. So he thinks household life is a prison only for those who are attached. For those who are attached. For a devotee, there is no harm in household life. That's exactly what this verse says. Thus, shall I remain at home and engage in chanting, or rather in hearing, or I shall engage in service? Look, I have a choice. I will remain at home. Sometimes I'll chant. Sometimes I will hear. Sometimes I will render some service, some deity services. Or I can even choose to, be like Ambarish Maharaj, who remained in household life and performed all the angas of bhakti. I will also do likewise, right? Like that. In this way, the mind spends time vacillating between household life and renunciation, right? When one imagines in this way all types of options, it is called Vyuda Vikalpa, or extensive speculation. So this could be even like in today's day and age, it's like, should I take a low paying job? Should I take an low paying job and spend more time in the temple? Or should I take a high paying job and spend less time in the temple, but so that I can retire early and I can, I can spend all the time in the temple? Or he's thinking, see, the basic point is that first was false confidence, utsahamai. Then there was ghana tarala, in this kind of sporadic endeavor. Then he realizes, look, I cannot afford to have such kind of sporadic endeavor. I need to figure out, why is my practice of devotional service so unsteady? So he realizes, maybe it is my ashram. Well, maybe it is my job. Or you know what? Maybe it is um, it is just that I live I have to travel so long for my job. Maybe when if I start living closer to my office, then I won't have to spend so much time commuting. Then I will have so much extra time for chanting and hearing. So in this way, the person starts deliberating on what are the changes that I can bring about so that my practice of devotional service can become steady. So he's deliberating in the right direction. He is no longer satisfied with this thick and thin devotional practice. So this Vyuda Vikalpa in that sense is a progress, because he is no longer satisfied with this thick and thin practice of devotional service. And he's wondering, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do like that? So this is called as Vyuda Vikalpa. Then, but the problem with this Vyuda Vikalpa is that he is looking for solutions in the external things. He thinks that if I make external changes, then my practice of bhakti will become very steady. Okay. So now he does make some external changes, and it does seem to have a reasonably good effect in his practice of devotional service. But then he realizes, oh, but still it is unsteady. Okay. So you made so much changes, external changes, and thought that it would completely transform your practice of devotional service, but it has maybe made some 15-20% transformation of what you had expected. 15-20%, not more than that. Why? Why? So then he reaches this fourth stage, Vishaya Sangara. Sangara means struggle, and Vishaya means senses or sense objects, you can say. Vishaya Sangara means struggle with senses, with uncontrolled mind and senses. So he says, Vishayavishta Chittanam Vishnuvavesha Suduratah Varuni Diggatam Vastu Vrajan Aindrim Kimapniyat. One whose heart is absorbed in materialism is far from obtaining devotion to Vishnu. Can a man, by going east, obtain something which is in the west? So this is the problem. If someone is going in the opposite direction, how can he's going the western direction, how can he obtain something which is there in the eastern direction? So at this stage, even after making all these external changes of his job and ashram and everything, he finally realizes that well, it looks like it is still the same. It is still the same. There is no significant improvement in my unsteadiness, or significant decrease of the unsteadiness. It still seems quite unsteady. Then he realizes, you know what? Actually, I thought the cause of my unsteadiness was in the external circumstances, but I now realize that the real cause of my unsteadiness is my uncontrolled mind and senses. So this is the fourth stage, right? It's not that his mind and senses were controlled in the previous stages, but he was dealing with more grosser obstacles that he could not realize the subtler obstacles. So his mind and senses were uncontrolled at that time also. In fact, more so in the early stages. But now, because the grosser obstacles have been removed, he is able to see very clearly that the problem is with the uncontrolled mind and senses, right? So understanding that material enjoyment is forcibly carrying him away and impairing his steadiness in serving Krishna, the devotee resolves to renounce his addictions and take shelter of the holy name. So he thinks, oh my God, now I realize that it was not in the external things, but it was actually my uncontrolled mind and senses which is the cause of this. Now what should I do? Now what should I do? He's thinking. Then he realizes that okay, now I should actually focus on controlling my mind and senses. So once he takes this resolve, then starts the prolonged struggle with mind and senses. He controls, and at some point, the senses and mind totally overpower him, and he gets defeated. And then he controls, and then they again overpower him, right? So he says, but many times his attempts at renunciation often end in enjoying what he is trying to renounce. So many times he is trying to renounce, and he ends up enjoying that only, right? And this kind of state is described in Shrimad Bhagavatam. Jata Shraddho Matkatasu Nirvinna Sarvakarmasu Veda Dukkatmakam Kaman Parityage api Anishwaraha Tato Bajeta Mam Prita Shraddalur Drida Nischaya Jushamanascha Tan Kaman Dukkodarkamscha Garhayan. So he says, Jata Shraddho Matkatasu. So such a person, he has developed faith in Krishna consciousness, Nirvinna Sarva Karmasu, and he is disgusted with all kinds of karma, jnana, yoga, etc. Veda Dukkatmakam Kaman. This person knows that any endeavor for sense gratification will eventually lead to suffering. He knows that. But Parityage api Anishwaraha. He is not always able to say no to Krishna, to sense gratification. He time and again keeps succumbing to the sense gratificatory desires. So Krishna says, Tato Prita. He instructs the devotee, please don't get so demoralized and dejected. Please remain happy and Mam Bhajeta and worship me. Shraddalur, while not doubting the process. Oh, even after 10 years of practicing Krishna consciousness, this desire to enjoy is not going away. I mean, so does this chanting the holy name and worshipping the deities, does it really work? Maybe I'm not really thinking that maybe it does not work like that. One may start getting doubts. So he says that Shraddalur, don't doubt the process. And Drida Nischaya, rather focus on increasing your determination to practice it more strictly, right? So he says, Jushamanascha Tan Kaman Dukko mind, he becomes very repentant. Okay. So this is what is described here. The classic symptoms of a, Vaidhi Sadhaka, especially at Anishtita Bhajana Kriya. Unsteady devotional service. Okay. Jata Shraddho Matkatasu, he has awakened faith in Krishna consciousness. Nirvinna Sarva Karmasu, and he thinks that Krishna Bhakti kaile Sarva Karma Krita hoy. Other than Bhakti, I don't have to do any Karma Jnana, Tapa Yoga, Sakalita Karma Boga, Karma Chadai Te ke ho nare, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes. So, Sakali Chadiya by Shraddha Devir Gunagai. So he says, give up all these endeavors for Karma, Jnana and Yoga and just sing the glories of Shraddha Devi. So like that he says. So Veda Dukkatmakam Kaman. Such a person understands that sense gratification leads to misery. It's not that he does not know. But Parityage api Anishwaraha. But he is still not able to give up sense gratification because he loses the battle. in the battle with the uncontrolled senses and mind, sometimes he gains victory and sometimes he loses. And whenever he loses, unable to give up that sense gratification, he sincerely repents for engaging in such acts. And then he continues like that. So this prolonged tug of war between his endeavor to sincerely practice bhakti and his falling prey to the pull and push of the uncontrolled mind and senses, this marks the fourth stage, which is Vishaya Sangara. Okay. So this ongoing battle with his previously acquired desires for sense pleasure, in which he sometimes meets with victory and sometimes with defeat, is called Vishaya Sangara, or struggle with sense pleasure. So on and off, on and off, on and off, like that. So this tug of war is called as Vishaya Sangara, right? So not that this struggle with the senses was not there before. Uh, uh, the struggle was there. Actually, the struggle was not there because he was not struggling only. He was just freely giving into the push and pull of the mind and senses. But he was so gross that he was not even realizing that his mind and senses are creating such a big trouble. So this is called as Vishaya Sangara, right? And then comes the fifth stage, Niyama Akshama. Niyama Akshama means Niyama means rules or vows, and Akshama means inability to follow. Okay, so inability to follow the rules and vows is called as Niyama Akshama. So this is, he is not talking about the four regulative principles. Okay, the four regulative principles comes in the previous stage, Vishaya Sangara. Inability to control the push and pull of the mind and senses, uncontrolled mind and senses, that comes. So the rules or vows that he's talking about here is positive rules for enhancing one's devotional service. Like, I should increase the number of rounds. I should enhance the quality of my chanting. Maybe I should increase the number of hours I read Srila Prabhupada's books. This is this is the positive vows. So once one has fairly developed some control over the uncontrolled mind and senses, to the extent that that is not, oh, how will I control my mind, man? How will I say no to the sweet every time? Why should I succumb every time? So when someone has reached a stage where he is no longer so much preoccupied about his uncontrolled mind and senses, then he can think about how I can positively enhance my practice of devotional service. How can I positively enhance? So that is called as niyama. And in trying to follow that niyama, sometimes he attains success, sometimes he becomes a failure. So this is called as niyama akshama, inability to always follow the vows or rules, right? So then the devotee will resolve, okay, from today I will chant such and such number of rounds of japa and will pay so many obeisances. I will also perform services for the devotees. I will not talk on any subject except the Lord, and I will give up all association with people who talk on material matters. All prajalpa I will stop today. I will so many hours I will worship, I will serve the devotees, so many number of rounds I will chant. Even though he makes such resolutions every day, he is not always able to execute them. Akshama, inability, right? Akshama. This is called niyama akshama, or inability to follow the rules. Vishaya Sangara is the inability to give up material enjoyment, whereas Niyamakshama is the inability to improve his devotional service. You see, this is one step forward. But ultimately, okay, anyway, now, after some time, he may even manage to attain a fair bit of steadiness in following the rules. Whatever rules he is setting, he is able to follow, and he's improving. He is improving. He is improving. And when devotees become more and more advanced on the path of devotional service, then what happens? When devotees advance, then what happens? People start people are otherwise actually practice. And all that, and that can actually get into one's head, and one may think, oh, this is very nice, aniyor, please don't stop, let it go on, more like that. And one may actually get carried away by that. So this is called as taranga rangini. Rangini means to relish or enjoy, and taranga means waves. So the waves of honor, respect, facilities, glorification, right? Puja, labh, pratishta. So when one is enjoying, surfing the waves of honor, respect, facilities, glorification, that is called as Taranga Rangini. So he has almost reached steady practice of devotional service. You know, he has overcome the stage of false confidence. He has overcome the stage of thick and thin devotional service. He has overcome the stage of, adjusting the externals to steady his devotional service. Then he has actually adjusted his uncontrolled mind and senses to a great degree. Then he has even gained some ability to, you know, properly follow the devotional vows that he has taken. But now he got stuck up with all the glorification and respect and honor and facilities that comes with it. So that is called as Taranga Rangini. So he says, finally, it is well known that the very nature of bhakti is to be attractive. So all types of people become attracted to the devotee, the abode of bhakti. And as the old adage goes, by the attraction of the populace, one becomes wealthy. So facilities come, wealth comes. Bhakti produces much opportunity for material gain, worship and position, labha, puja and pratishtha. People, it gives you a high position and wealth and worship and everything. These are weeds around the creeper of bhakti. Performing activities or seeking one's pleasure amidst these weed-like facilities, which are but small waves in the ocean of bhakti, is called taranga rangini, or delighting in material facilities. Right? So this is called as taranga rangini. So if you see, we are actually, I have not even come to even 50% of what I wanted to cover, and I want to leave some time for question and answers also. Maybe the next part I can probably take the next time. But actually we wanted to discuss this theme of how, because this whole chapter is discussing, the last two chapters has been discussing about the futility of living a life dedicated to material enjoyment, how it leads to suffering, right? Dukkalayam asashvatam, right? This material world is described as. So how a life dedicated to material enjoyment is a futile endeavor, right? That is what the 13th and 14th chapter of 5th canto is talking about. But we saw that actually in a devotee's life, you know, a materialist falls in one end of the spectrum and a perfected devotee falls at the other end, but a sadhaka is always in between. He has faith which belongs to the perfected pure devotee, but he has a conditioning which belongs to the materialist. And how this seemingly incompatible situation is navigated, and how one progresses within the realm of unsteady devotional service is described in a very beautiful systematic way by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. We saw the first case of Utsahamayi false confidence. Then then there is sporadic endeavor, thick and thin practice. So the false confidence stage is again due to the influence of mode of ignorance and mode of passion. So by mode of passion, he is inspired to practice more and more 64 rounds and all that, and um, and uh, and mode of ignorance, it pushes him to think that this is, I have gained perfection. Okay, so material attachments in the form of mode of impressions of mode of ignorance and passion is the cause of the 6 stages of unsteady devotional service. So then comes the next stage of coming in terms with reality, where he realizes that this was false confidence actually. So thick and thin, thick and thin, thick and thin again is due to the influence of mode of ignorance and mode of passion, which manifests in the form of many material attachments. So why it is thick and thin? During thick, it was mode of passion. He was practicing sadhana in mode of passion to impress others. And when it was thin, he was consumed by other attractions, other material attachments, right? And then he comes to the third stage where he realizes this thick and thin practice and sporadic endeavor is not agreeable. I need to study it. So when he tries to study it, he is looking too externally. He is trying to adjust the externals and hopes for a complete overhaul of his bhakti. But this does not happen. This is very unrealistic expectation. So because of his attachments, he is not able to see internally. But eventually when he overcomes this stage, he comes to the fourth stage where he is now able to see internally, and he realizes that it is my uncontrolled mind and senses which are actually causing this this thing. So uncontrolled mind and senses is also due to material attachments, right? But at some stage, by practice of bhakti and gaining strength, devotional strength, he is able to overcome that stage also. But he gets, and he tries to positively increase his devotional vows, in which sometimes he attains success, sometimes failure. And slowly when he works on that, and why failure? Again, because of material attachments. But again, when he, by the strength of bhakti, he gives up that material attachment. And when he becomes very perfect in controlling his mind and senses and upholding devotional vows, then he gets the facilities which are offered by bhakti, and puja, la, pratishtha, honor, glorification, and all that. And eventually, when he overcomes this obstacle also, which is also a kind of material attachment only, right? Honor, glorification, facilities is also material attachment only. When he gives this up, then finally he reaches Nishta, steady devotional service. All the various manifestations of material attachments, slowly by practice of bhakti, when they are given up, then gradually one reaches the stage of steady devotional service. So that's what we have been discussing. And I further wanted to discuss, I'll just show you the topics. Maybe next time we can discuss that. Then I was going to discuss how association of devotees is the only way to overcome unsteady devotional service. How it happens, I had a lot of things that I wanted to discuss. Then we were going to discuss in general, the kinds of anarthas which stop a person from steadily practicing. And mainly we were going to focus on this Asat Trishna, which is whole 13th and 14th chapter is about Asat Trishna, the thirst for impermanent, and how it manifests, and what is the solution to overcome Asat Trishna. And this is a very elaborate discussion, but maybe I think I will stop here because we don't have time. I need to rush, but I still have some at least 15 minutes for some question and answers. So I think I'll pause here, and we will have some discussion, and then we will maybe go forward.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Dharma Pranam, Prabhu. What a beautiful class, Prabhu. You initially said you are going to offer us Bhel Puri, but if this is Bhel Puri, we'll love to have that Bhel Puri every time you are with us. What a beautiful class, Prabhu. What an amazing class. I always hear in different lectures about Ado Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajan Kriya, and speakers go ahead, but I never heard of these 6 stages of unsteady devotional service. Amazing. Thank you so much for bringing that, Prabhu. Actually, every point you were saying, I was relating to those points, like, yeah, this happened. And thank you so much to you, and all glories to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, because in this age, we can find these verses, going to Veda base. It's so easy for us. I actually was able to find the book online. It's a beautiful book of 500 pages, but same time I was thinking, wow, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was giving references to every point, and from scriptures. Amazing. So thank you so much, Prabhu. What a beautiful class. I really enjoyed it. I loved it, Prabhu. I think Tiffany Mataji has a question. Mataji, please go ahead. I'll unmute you.
Hare Krishna, Balaram Shakti Prabhu. Thank you. So I'm so grateful for this class, because I've been wanting a class on Madhurya Kadambini for years. And I always thought that you are the perfect Prabhu to give a class on this text. I really love this text, and there's so much I want to learn. And the part that you said you had to leave out was actually part of my question. It was about devotee association and how that related. So all I really have to say is I just look forward to you doing another class connecting to this, to Madhurya Kadambini, because I really would love to get to the third shower of nectar, which is the mitigation of inauspicious elements. I think that's so important. And yes, so yeah, I just want to say thank you. And like I said, I know you're short on time, so I'll wait. Hopefully we can have you speak on this again, because it was just beautiful. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, hopefully, because generally I give alternate Saturdays generally. So I think the next to next Saturday, I think we will still be in the 14th chapter. Maybe I could continue.
Please,
theme, and maybe, yeah.
Please, yes, because the devotee association was my question. So thank you.
Vivek Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Balram Shakti Prabhuji, thank you so much. I just wanted to offer my gratitude to to this class. Like everyone expressed, this is like an eye opener because all of us really struggle with our sadhana, and it was like beating of the false ego listening to your class today. The devotees were expressing that everyone can relate to our particular journey in the path of devotional service, and this one is really an eye opener. I hope that we can listen to more of your classes, Prabhu. I'm extremely grateful that you're actually putting forth all this in an open forum, which doesn't happen always. Extremely grateful, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Great.
Sureshwar Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Balram Shakti Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Very nice class. Always enjoy, relish your classes. So, Prabhu, this one, you mentioned one point, renunciation should be based on extreme longing for Uttama Sloka Lalasa. Right, Prabhu? But,
Yeah.
right,
I mean,
this-
what I meant was it should be proportionate. One should not think that that one is in family life and one whimsically gives it up, thinking that by this I will progress in devotional service, while still not possessing that level of actual devotion. But maybe one may just be running away due to a sense of not wanting the responsibility, like that.
yeah,
One should not
So-
imitate. That's the point.
yeah, Prabhu. But one confusion I have around this is, it is a circle, Prabhu, right? Once you renounce, you get this more lalasa, right? So then again, once you have lalasa, you will be able to renounce, right? So it's a circle, right?
Well,
Prabhu, from general
Okay,
sense.
but the point is, it to some extent it is true, but
Uh-huh.
it should be proportionate. It should not
Okay.
be disproportionate. So it's not that you give up little that you can give up, not
Okay.
that you give up and keep thinking about it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
then instead of Uttama Shloka Lalasa, it will be Lalasa for that which you have given up, actually.
Okay, that
So-
proportionate thing is key. Yeah. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Now I understood that circle, how to come out of that circle. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Dhanavad, Prabhu.
Anjana Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much. Actually, I wanted to thank you. I also wanted to go detail about this part, Vajana Kriya, the stage of Vajana Kriya, and then also looking for your next class about Anartha Nivriti and how the devotee association will be. And the only way we can come out or we can be in the study devotional services. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Your class, all the classes are it's a very eye-opener, Prabhuji. Thank you
It's
so much
all
for your
Vishwanath
assistance.
Chakradhara course, glory Mataji. I'm just repeating. I am just reading from there. Literally, I didn't do anything. I was just reading from the book. That's all.
And thank you, Prabhu, for bringing, even though before classes also are all very nice, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Right.
Very grateful.
Thank you.
Anuradha Mataji, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhuji. I need to listen to it again. But this question is in general, Prabhu, somewhat related to Sureshwar Prabhu's question, and you kind of answered, but I would again like to hear, this is the month of Kartik, and seeing all other devotees leaving so many things for Krishna, I feel like doing, but while I'm doing so, my mind, especially when it comes to sweets, and, in a temple community and Kartik, to my misfortune, good fortune, I don't know, every day after the Kartik Deepdam, every day there is sweet. Okay, every day. And then yes, so it is, when I want to leave it for Krishna, but at the same time I keep thinking about it. So is this renunciation, is any sort of renunciation? Because I'm better renunciate when I can take it anytime, and this goes for anything that I leave. And but when I leave it, then I think of it more than I otherwise, Prabhu. So, and at the same time, if we don't leave anything for Krishna, how do we practice living for Krishna, Prabhu?
Yeah, I mean, in one sense, we should definitely try to give up certain things for Krishna. But in doing that, we cannot be completely absorbed about giving it up. Ultimately we should be Krishna conscious. It's not that we are renunciation conscious. It's not that uh, we don't try to renounce, but in renouncing we cannot be consumed by that act of renunciation. Oh yeah, really, what, I could give it up. I mean, there's one thing good. Yes, somehow, you can always feel joyous that I could give it up for Krishna, and it should again be thoughts of Krishna rather than our being consumed by, oh, why did I give it up? Maybe I should have taken it up, or oh, look, I gave it up and I should be really great. So both kinds of absorptions are not very favorable. Maybe in the initial stages it is bound to be there, but gradually one should try to move ahead like that.
Please bless me, Prabhu, so that I can be at the place where you're saying we should be, Prabhu. Thank you so much for your association.
Prabhuji, Lalitangi Mataji has asked a question in the chat box. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, can you explain how Vyuda Vikalpa different from Ghana Tarala?
Oh, Ghana Tarala means, he's not even thinking. One day he's having enthusiasm, next day no enthusiasm. Next day extreme enthusiasm, next day absolutely no enthusiasm. So this is Ghana Tarala. Vyuda Vikalpa is when he is actually thinking, what could be the reason? Why is it that it is thick and thin, thick and thin? I need to do something to fix this. So that is actually Vyuda Vikalpa. That's the difference.
Gail Mataji, please go ahead with your question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
The clarity that with which you break things down gives me ecstatic symptoms. One question that remains for me is when a person comes to the stage of Niyama Akshama, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
At that point, let's see, he has attained some level of steadiness.
Yeah.
And therefore, now his focus is to increase his devotion, right? By increasing the vows, the rules.
Yeah.
His adherence to the rules. So I'm trying to understand the difference between that level of steadiness and nishta, actually. Oh, I guess the difference is the difference is that he has not yet enjoyed the fruits of his becoming so steady and then getting tempted by that. Maybe that hasn't entered.
Yeah. That's why actually the symptoms of Nishta are fivefold. It is mentioned. There is absence of these 5 things, which are the classic symptoms of Nishta, which is the first is that okay, let me think about it. Okay, the first is actually laya, or feeling very sleepy. So if one feels sleepy either during japa or hearing, so this is the first symptom that one has not reached Nishta. Then there is vikshepa. Vikshepa means distraction. If one gets distracted while chanting, hearing, or any other devotional activity, a person at the stage of Nishta does not get distracted. Even by, oh, so many people are glorifying me, it's so good. So even that kind of distraction will not be there at the stage of Nishta. Laya, vikshepa, apratipatti. Apratipatti means temporary lack of taste to perform some devotional service. He says that, okay, you have half an hour free time. What will you do? Why don't you chant 4 extra rounds? He says, well, you know what? I'm not exactly in a mood. Generally I may chant, but right now I'm not in a mood to chant. That is apratipatti. That is absent at the stage of nishta. Laya, vikshepa, apratipatti, kashaya. Kashaya means actually old bad habits. There is no influence of old bad habits when one reaches the stage of nishta. And then the fifth is rasaswada. Rasaswada means when there is an opportunity to enjoy abundantly, then one is not able to focus on devotional service, right? So that is not there at the stage of nishta. So at the stage of niyamakshama, the very fact that he is not able to uphold his vows uh, uh, means that he has these kind of attachments, because if he did not have these kind of attachments, then he would be able to uphold his vows. So therefore the stage of niyamakshama and even tarangarangini for that matter, his steady practice, which was almost steady, but it is the unsteadiness is created due to his getting attracted to worship, adoration, and all those things, like that.
Yeah, which was the fifth one, right? Can't renounce opportunities to enjoy abundantly.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So therefore, I mean, but he can renounce opportunities to enjoy mediocrely.
Yeah.
With mediocrity.
Yeah. So in one sense, if you see, the person at the sixth stage is reasonably steady actually. Even though you cannot call it nishta, but he is almost like, you can say 80% nishta, you can say. Yes, he has reached almost 80%, 80, 90%, depending on how much he's.
But the person, let me see now, the person at Niyamakshama, he has these 5 potential, let's say, fall downs, right? Niyamakshama stage.
Yeah. Even Tarangarangini has these 5 potential things. I mean, it may not be so much of laya or vikshepa or apratipatti, but some of the things may be there little bit, there is a desire to enjoy the subtle, to a lesser degree it will be there. Yeah.
Okay. But the person at Tarangarangini, his main problem, the most prominent one of the 5 for him is that inability to renounce opportunities to enjoy abundantly. That's the most prominent for him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so before we wind up, I just wanted to share something, because there has been, I will just very briefly mention it to you, that that because this is a forum in which I regularly speak, so it's like one family, so I should be sharing it with you, that my parents have become fairly old. My father is 81 now, and my mother is like 70, going to be 77. So, and being the only son, in one sense the responsibility is upon me. So after very careful deliberation and discussion with various senior devotees, I have decided to go back to my hometown and actually take care of my parents. So subsequently, from the next time whenever I meet you, I will not be staying in GEV. I'll be staying at home taking care of them, and I have other family responsibilities also which have come up, which I cannot neglect actually. So I am just informing you beforehand that next time you see me, you may not see me in saffron colored clothes, so I may be wearing some other colored, so I am just informing you beforehand. So that's the situation that Krishna has presented. So I'll have to accept and move on. So I'm seeking your prayers and blessings so that I can make this transition. So thank you all very much.
Shamagori Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandot Pranam. Very, very enlightening class, Prabhuji. Very nice, very practical. And you teach us like, you are teaching in the classroom like that. So, very nice, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for your time and association. And we will pray for you, Prabhuji. Everything is going to be okay. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much. So Dandavat Pranam. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad
Thank you,
Bhagavatam.
Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for sharing your situation with us. This shows how beautiful your heart is, and this shows how near you feel us to yourself. Thank you so much for putting us in that position.
Yeah, I just didn't want you to get confused. That's all.
No, Prabhu, no. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Actually, I didn't want it today class to be ended. I said Prabhu will bring us to Krishna with all these steps. He's clearing all the. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Dear devotees, please let's pay our obeisances to Prabhuji. Vancha kalpataru vakshaja kripa sindhuve Grantraj Srimad
Bhagavatam ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ji ki jai. His Grace Balram Shakti Prabhu ji.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. We will
Thank you,
take
Prabhu.
that.
Please give your association, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for this
Yes,
beautiful
Prabhu.
service,
Thank you so much.
Prabhuji. We're so grateful to you.
Hare
All prayers to you and your family.
Yes.
Thank you very much for giving very nice classes that we can understand. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. And be glorious. Now you can live your glorious life. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Sham.
Thank you again, Prabhu. Your example, Prabhu. You are for your parents, you are doing everything. Thank you, Prabhu. Your example. Thank you, Prabhu. Hari Bol.
Thank you, all dear devotees. I don't think we have Rajamandal Parikrama today in the interest of time. So we will end the meeting here. Thank you all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam. We'll end the meeting here.
Hare
Yes,
Bol.
Mataji. Hari Bol.
So grateful for all of you. Hare Krishna.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.